there was no sex trading. There were no senators I was, sleeping with. There was no spycraft, and I have never been charged for espionage. And finally, I have nothing to do with the fiction movie, The Red Sparrow, that was made by a, half-sick guy who used to travel to Moscow and imagined he spoke Russian.
This was Maria Butina, a bold, fierce Russian activist with a passion for firearms and an uncanny ability to work her way into America's conservative elite, reaching circles as high as Donald Trump's. Maria has become the center of one of the most explosive espionage scandals in recent US history. Called a seductive honey trap and compared to Dominika Egorova's lead character in Francis Lawrence's spy thriller Red Sparrow, she crossed paths with politicians, NRA power players, and even a billionaire CEO, until she was accused of being a Russian spy and put to jail. Welcome back to SolCube Analytics, where we challenge mainstream narratives and dive deep into global events. I'm Thomas Karat, your host, presenting weekly insights from recognized thought leaders like diplomats, academics, intelligence experts, and sometimes, like today, activists of some sort. So join us as we uncover the hidden stories beneath the headlines. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any of your other preferred podcast platforms. Okay, but for this interview, I've done something special. I've invited none other than James Bamford, one of America's top investigative journalists, to set the stage with an introduction. With decades-long expertise in intelligence, James has investigated Maria's story and questions the official version that painted her as a seductive spy. He guides us through a world of power, politics, and paranoia, where often one scandal is buried beneath another. While there was little evidence found for Russia to collude with the Trump campaign in 2016, James uncovered another country, Israel, to have done exactly that. If you want to know more about the Israeli interference in the 2016 US elections, I have discussed this topic in more detail in a previous interview with James. You can find the link in the description below. This is why James invites us to ask, was Maria really a covert operative, or just caught as a convenient scapegoat in the crossfire of a political storm we came to know as Russiagate?
Hi, I'm James Bamford. I'm a writer, author. I've been writing on intelligence for many, many years. And this is an introduction to Maria Butina, who has a very interesting background. So I'm looking forward to talking about it. I met Maria when she first came here around 2017. She came here from Moscow, and she was born in Siberia, grew up in Siberia. She flew here from Moscow and wanted to learn about the United States. So she enrolled at the American University in Washington, D.C. for a master's degree in international relations. And because she was studying international relations, we happened to meet at a function. There's a lot of functions around Washington where there's discussion groups on different international issues. So we were at a discussion group, I think, on peace in the Middle East or something like that. I told somebody that I was going to be going to take the Trans-Siberian Railway across Russia later that year. And the person said, "Oh, you should talk to that woman over there because she grew up in Siberia." Well, I'd never met anybody that had grown up in Siberia or actually had ever lived in Siberia. So I introduced myself. It was Maria Butina. And as I said, at the time, she had just enrolled for a master's degree program at American University. So because I was very interested in Russia and I'd been there many times and she was from Russia, we hit it off and we would get together every now and then and chat about Russia and chat about the United States. And so that's how we first met, basically at a function dealing with international relations. As this was going on, Russiagate was a big deal in the United States. It was enormous press coverage by mainstream media, particularly the New York Times and the Washington Post. They were covering this nonstop almost every day, that Russia's doing this and Russia's doing that. And there really was no evidence of that. But when I was looking into all this for a book I was doing on counterintelligence, I found that it wasn't the Russians that were trying to interfere in the election. It was the Israelis who actually were interfering in the election. What happened was that the Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted desperately for Donald Trump to win the White House. So he sent an emissary, a secret agent, his top lawyer, who he sends often on very secret missions. He sent him to make contact with the Trump campaign. And so he did. He made contact with a number of people very close to Donald Trump who put the agent in touch with Donald Trump. And for the entire summer of 2016, there was this effort to get Trump to make concessions to Israel. The key concession, he'd already agreed to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And what they wanted him to do was declare that Jerusalem would be recognized by Washington as the new capital, or the eternal capital of Israel. So it worked. And at the end of the summer, after all these contacts, Netanyahu flew to New York, met with Trump at Trump Towers, and they had a joint press conference. And during the press conference, Trump said exactly that if he's elected president, he would recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel as opposed to Tel Aviv. So that was the key interference. And that information was solid because it came from information I got from the FBI under the Freedom of Information Act. These were affidavits written by FBI agents that had gotten the actual telephone and email and text messages of the agent, of the secret Israeli agent. And that material was actually in the documents I got. So the material I got from the FBI were affidavits, and the affidavits contain the actual transcripts of conversations between the Israeli secret agent and the Trump campaign. So you don't get any better evidence than that. So that was the irony of this whole thing, was that while the Israelis were penetrating the election, sending a secret agent to interfere with the Trump campaign, the press was paying no attention to that at all. But all the attention instead was being paid on Russia. And in the end, that's how Maria Butina got dragged into the whole thing, because of all this press attention on Russiagate. In the end, there was no there. There was never any evidence that there was a collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. There was evidence, however, of collusion between the Trump campaign and Israel. So that's the irony. Maria Butina gets arrested for a conspiracy that didn't exist, when the press ignored the conspiracy that really did exist. Well, I've got a lot of respect for Maria. I mean, she put up with a tremendous amount of hardship. She was in solitary confinement. I mean, this is somebody who's never done anything violent, and they put her in solitary confinement for most of her stay there when she was after she was arrested. And the whole idea was to intimidate her and force her into signing a guilty plea agreement. So I've stayed in touch with Maria for years after she was finally released and went back to Russia and became a member of the Russian Duma, the parliament. So I've always enjoyed staying in touch with her, and I hope you'll enjoy this interview that Thomas is going to be doing with Maria. I think it'll be a very interesting interview to listen to, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy listening to it myself.
Maria Butina, what a pleasure having you. Welcome.
Thank you so very much.
I have to give credit to a acquaintance of both of us. That's Jim Bamford, who wrote the book Spy Fail. I interviewed him on two topics. One was the Israeli super spy sitting in the center of Hollywood till today. And the second one was the Israeli interference in the U.S. elections, and that's also my segue into your story.
Indeed.
Now, very briefly, I have a couple of notes in front of me, which I will read some headlines. But first of all, very briefly, where are you right now?
Oh, wow. It looks like I don't know, a Tsar's palace, but actually this is my working office in the Duma. We have a separate building from the, believe it or not, 17th century. It's called Palaty Treikurova, which is technically a palace that used to belong to one of their big guys, sellers who lived in old Russia. And now it's devoted to the Foreign Relations Committee, where I have an honor to serve. And that's in the heart of Moscow. So if you just Google Duma, the state of Duma, you'll see the actual building complex. It includes 3 different buildings, an old one, as we call it, which is the oldest one, obviously, the new one, the new building, and this little, paradise. And we invite ambassadors here, foreign ambassadors, and all the, foreign activities related to the Western countries and countries that are far away from Russia, not on the borderline, is the heart of these actions in lawmaking is here.
An incredible transformation. If I'm looking at my headlines, which I have on my right side here, and talking to you from within the Duma, it's quite incredible. So, with your kind permission, I would like to first read a couple of headlines from 2018, and I will contrast those headlines with a statement from your then lawyer, because it's a really nice contrast. We'll jump right into it. So ABC, not surprisingly, quite a, how shall I say this, sensationalist headline. Court filings allege Russian agent offered sex for access. Now, the New York Times was not much better. Maria Butina, suspected secret agent, used sex in covert plan, prosecutors say. Then CNN can't stand far behind. The Russian accused of using sex, lies, and guns to infiltrate US politics. And to top it off all, I have one last statement from the federal prosecutor. Butina's graduate studies and her relationship with Paul Erickson were just a cover. In reality, she was a clandestine Russian agent sent to the United States to use sex and seduction to infiltrate conservative political circles and influence the White House policies towards Russia. Hallelujah. It cannot get more sensationalist than that, right? So they portray you like a fictional spy seductress. I think it was Jennifer Lawrence in what was it? Red Sparrow, the movie, something like that. And now I have a statement from your then lawyer, Mr. Driscoll. And again, I read it's a small paragraph. A spy, in quotation marks, who uses no tradecraft and posts her every move on social media. A handler, and I think he refers here to Toshin, which we will discuss later, who travels with and communicates openly with his charge. And a mission to somehow undermine the United States by having friendship dinners with Russians and Americans seeking peace. Now, despite all of that, or because all of that, I'm not entirely sure, you were charged with violating Section 951 of the U.S. Code, acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign power, and you were sentenced to 18 months of jail. And today being Wednesday, the 23rd of October, you were released in October 25, 2 days from now, 5 years back. So congratulations, Maria.
May I, look, if you're ready for certain experiments, I just remembered, I would like you to make a certain test. So you just Google, you go online, and you type 3 words, 4 actually. U.S. prosecutors misread and Butina, and see what you get. I don't have my phone with me.
Misread Butina.
U.S. prosecutors misread and Butina. What do you have?
Misled, yes, misled.
Misread,
Yeah,
like reading.
there are quite a couple here.
Mm-hmm.
Judge orders Butina to remain in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Alleged Russian operatives Maria Butina negotiating with prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
Accused Russian spy Maria Butina cooperating. Accused spy in contact with the Russians. There's a whole list.
Very interesting, because
Yeah.
actually you can put there one more word. It's called New York Times. After that, they actually published an article, and the prosecutor said in the courtroom that they misread the texts that were involved in sex in my text messaging. So they put it online on the page 19th, I guess, of the New York Times, and you can have it on your podcast. People can find it. So it was a deep insult for me as a woman. And they always say that they respect women and all this stuff, but there was no sex trading. There were no senators I was, sleeping with. There was no spycraft, and I have never been charged for espionage. And finally, I have nothing to do with a fiction movie, The Red Sparrow, that was made by a, well, half-sick guy who used to travel to Moscow and imagined he spoke Russian. Well, I would suggest everyone who does speak Russian to read the way he thinks Russians speak. So he has a dialogue in his book, because I read the book, it's 3 parts. There is a dialogue between a man and a woman in the book, and basically the author of the book says, well, I know how to be nice to a Russian lady, so you just have to say her that she has a very beautiful, and then he used a very rude Russian word. If you translate it, you have it very rude. I'm not going to use it, but it means female vagina. And that's, he believes, is the right way to address a Russian lady, which means he does not speak any Russian, and he's completely, on the different page. So this guy writes a book, somebody transfers the book into the story, which is even more fictional than the book, and then here you go, I'm arrested. 2 months later, after the premiere, the book, the movie actually failed, and here I am, and everybody says, oh, she's the Red Sparrow. And I have just one question. Are you guys kidding me? How, like, where are the senators I was supposed to influence? Whereas the money that they funneled through the NRA, they found none. Because there were none. And half a year, they go through debriefs, bringing me salads and coffee in the garage, keeping me at the same time on solitary and asking me stupid questions. How I was, how did I attend the school from the 1st grade? And now they finally give me my papers back. It happened 2 days ago, where I see my school notes from the high school, which is, I guess, is a 9 terabyte of secret data that they found out at my place. So anyone who just sits and thinks clearly understands this is a crazy stuff. And especially when you have somebody to plead to a conspiracy case, you have to have a co-conspirator at least. You cannot be guilty in conspiracy with yourself, but I am. That's crazy. And
you're Russian. You're Russian. You are guilty by association.
oh, no. Actually, in the courtroom at the final hearing, when the sentencing was done, there was an FBI agent, like a former FBI agent who was an expert in cybersecurity, nothing to do in my case, who the judge asked him, have you actually talked to Maria on debriefs? Have you read the case? And he said, well, I did not have time to read the case, but I'm sure she is guilty. And then the judge looks like this, is like, but why? And he says, oh, because Russians always do so. It was like, that's the guilt? Come on. So I know it sounds for me now, it's kind of in the past. And yes, 2 days after I'm going to be 5 years old because I celebrate twice my birthday, twice a year. But the whole thing is that two years after they publish Mueller's investigation and Durham report, where there is no word about Maria Butina.
Yeah, we come back to the Mueller report
nothing.
because I'm interviewing you for a specific reason which has nothing to do with you. I don't want to say more, but you will understand. Yeah, that there is an underlying connection here that I already mentioned in the intro.
Oh, see,
yeah?
everybody
But
sees
first,
now. You did not prepare questions. You can see it on my face. There was not a setup
no,
of Russian propaganda
no,
or something.
nothing at all. Yeah. What I would like to outline here, I think it's very important to take the context in which your case happened into consideration. This was this media frenzy about Russiagate, right? The supposed interference of Russia in the U.S. election in 2016 to undermine Trump. Yeah. Well, I'm not a Trump fan, I have to say. Yeah.
Me neither.
There was actually evidence found, which is in the Mueller report, of another country interfering in that specific elections, but that's for later. And you suffered from that. You suffered because you were, at the wrong time, at the wrong place. That's how I see it. Under normal circumstances, your case would have looked completely different. Now, we have talked a little bit about your case. So for viewers who do not know you and who do not know your case, could you outline, without spending the full hour, because I know we could, on what happened to you? And maybe you start in 2011 with, when you founded an organization called Rights to Bear Arms in Russia. And we can connect this right away to Alexander Toshin.
Perfect. Well, I was born in Siberia, and in Siberia, my father, everybody has a gun, and guns are, yes, legal in Russia. There is a law that allows you to buy up to 10 different guns, 5 long-barreled, 5 short-barreled guns, and 2 pistols, rubber bullets. That's it. It's a law. So my father is a hunter and taught me as a child how to shoot. And I am not a hunter per se so much, but I'm a IPSC practical shooter. So I like shooting a pistol in a sports club. That's what I do. Eventually, I found a group because we were looking how NRA, the National Rifle Association, used to do their meetings. So we would bring families and we would do barbecues and we would shoot together. And it's like my father did with me when he taught me how to shoot. It wasn't our dacha. No, dacha is like country house. Our country house. So that's my normal life. And then eventually the actual movement, I'm a political scientist. So I bring it into politics saying like, look, guys, we have to fight for our rights to keep guns, which I have not changed my mind. I'm still at the same place and nobody puts me in jail in Russia, as you see. And I said, well, how about we come together and everybody who believes that we should have these guns and also we should make the guns like regular pistols and revolvers legal. So I come up with this idea and a lot of people show up. So we make the first demonstration in Moscow, which is very easy to do. You sign a claim, especially to the mayor, and they say, okay, we will make the security. Like, I know that people who watch it, they might have seen so much propaganda anti-Russian that they believe it's not possible and that it has to be this KGB setup. No, I just from Siberia. You can actually do it. It's Russia. Anyway, so I go and we go and we fight, and then I start getting all these messages from many people with similar societies from abroad. I had 15 different countries who would come to me at our annual meeting. 1 or 2 guys, I can give you names. It's all legal, open, that's okay. And those days before the special military operation, we have a lot of friends in Europe, from the Czech Republic, from Estonia, from Latvia, Lithuania, Italy, Greece, from everywhere. They all come to me. And I do want the National Rifle Association to come because they're the biggest guys. So I reach out to Toshin. Toshin is our senator. He used to be a vice senator of the Russian Senate, Russian upper chamber. So reach out to him, and he's a big supporter of guns. He's very public of that. He is on Twitter, and he, all the time he writes that, okay, I am pro-gun. I said, okay. So I reach out to him, and I know he travels to the U.S. back and forth for about 10 years already. And I say, do you have someone at the National Rifle Association? Because guess what? They never responded to my emails because I'm this much, and NRA is big. They don't even respond. So, and he says, well, yes, I know David Keene, who used to be the president of the NRA. And this is how I get in touch to David Keene. I sent him an email saying, like, look, Mr. Toshin is an honorable member of my group, and he would like to invite you. Toshin doesn't speak English. Does want to invite you to our meeting. And David Keene says, all right, I'm going to come for a couple of days. He would fly from America to Israel, from Israel, they had a tour or something, to Moscow. This is how the group of two come to my place. We also had guys from Texas, unrelated to the National Rifle Association, because they have all this, inside fighting gun rights groups. I have no idea. I invited everyone. They paid for their own expense, and we hosted them in the hotel, which is not expensive. Okay. Then they invite me to the States. This is how I end up on the States. I finished my degree straight A. Anyone who says that I did not study well, good luck to you guys.
Political science. You studied political science, right?
Yeah. I studied political science at Altai State. This is my alma mater in Siberia. And then I go to get my master's at American University in Washington, D.C. at SIS, School of International Service. And I get straight A. I die at the library. But my boyfriend, by circumstance, of course, we are friends, and he comes to Moscow with David Keene. He becomes eventually my boyfriend. And so
you talk about
Paul Erickson. So he comes first time with David Keene, and he invites me out, and we eventually see each other all the time. And he becomes my boyfriend. And of course, he is involved in the NRA, and he is involved in all this CPAC and Republicans. We have never been close to the Republican Party, more to CPAC, a conservative party.
But if you mention names for the viewers who do not know, you have to explain who is David Keene and who is Paul.
I said he's the former president of the National Rifle Association, and Paul Erickson used to be his assistant when he traveled to Moscow. Eventually, he happened to be my boyfriend. I didn't know he's a con man, but that's later. Okay, that happens sometimes. Anyway, so I study there. I go to different events. I attend Trump's inauguration ball. Paul invites me there. They have 3 balls, very public. Of course, you have to find tickets and pay for them. It's America. You have to pay even for invitations. But anyway, so we go there. And over time, once I finish my degree, I get an extension to my visa called OPT, Optional Practical Training Program. I get a little job studying my PhD at business school at American University. 2 days later, they arrest me. What was that? And I say, I'm sitting in the cell with Bob Driscoll and Alfred Kerry, who are my great attorneys. They did their best. And I say, but this is sorry guys, it's a crap. I have 15 pages of my tweets as an evidence. So my tweets, I can give them to you, these exact tweets. And they say, but it's 15 years because you were trying to influence American politicians. They say, how? They say, well, you were at all these events and taking pictures. It's called socializing. They told me at every single class at American University, we have to socialize to go to all these political events. I did so. What's my fault? But anyway, nobody cares. It's witch hunt.
Apologies for this quick interruption, but if you're interested in this conversation, you want to hear this. Over on my Substack, you will find an article that gives you all the tools you need to look through media bias and manipulation. I use the headlines of Maria's case as an example, but you will find also material that shows you how glaringly deceptive, there's really no other word for it, the global media misrepresented the recent riots in Amsterdam and how they did it. It's free, it's raw, it's controversial, and each article is filled with practical insights that will enable you to look through the smoke and mirrors that people, politicians, corporations, and the media pull up to keep you in the dark. If you're ready for a new lifelong skill set, subscribe to my Substack. There's a link in the description. There was certainly some interest in getting you convicted, despite the evidence. Yeah. So I have a couple of pointers in front of me following my research in regards to your history. There are actually 14 points. 14 points, minor points. Yeah, so the first one we discussed already, rights to bear arms in Russia. And you're right. I thought, well, first I thought, of course, everybody in Russia has guns. Then I did some research and found, hey, actually, it's not that easy to get guns in Russia. Maybe in Siberia it is, but in the rest of Russia, it's quite restricted.
It's everywhere. We have a federal law, meaning it doesn't matter what region you are in. It involves a lot of documents like bureaucracy, but it's legal, and I'm a gun owner, so you can do it.
Yeah. So I'm going kind of chronologic. So according to my notes, and I do not claim 100% correctness. So please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here. So in 2013, you meet David Keene, which is indeed the former NRA president, and you invite him to speak in Moscow. Then in 2014, you came together with Paul Erickson, a Republican operative. He becomes a crucial link, introducing you to U.S. conservative political circles and NRA members. Then in 2015, Butina organizes, also Maria, you organize NRA delegation to Moscow, including Erickson and Sheriff David Clark. I'm unaware of this name.
Oh,
Does it ring a bell?
Well, this is the NRA interesting stuff. They love to do that. Okay. David Clark is a great gentleman. He's a Democrat. So in order to win points, this is what Republicans do and the NRA does. They take this, he's just an average sheriff, but he is black and he is a Democrat. So they take him as a flag, you know what I mean? It's like it's a technique that politicians use to say, wow, he should be this attractive star.
Poster boy, yeah.
Oh, you call it poster. Oh, that's a nice word. So he becomes their poster boy, Sheriff Clark, and he happened to go to Moscow to wear a Ushanka hat because it was in winter, and these pictures were everywhere. Like he committed a crime. Well, there are plenty of people wearing Ushanka hats on Red Square and taking pictures. It's kind of fine. It's called tourism. But anyway, it became a crime, I guess, because they were torturing this poor guy, saying, look, you have to file additional taxes and additional taxes. Like, come on, we didn't pay anyone. We are not interested. We don't have money, first of all, to pay to the NRA guys. They don't need our money. It's so just funny. Okay, anyway, sorry for interrupting.
No worries, anytime. So then we continue 2015 to 2016. Maria deepens ties with US conservative figures through Erickson and continues to build her NRA connections. Also in May 2016, and that's the first really interesting one, Butina offers a back channel to Russian officials via Rick Dearborn, which is the Trump campaign advisor at that time.
Yeah. Oh, can I comment on that? So
Please.
there was an
You can comment on anything.
You
can comment on anything.
First of all, keep everybody who is watching this video and you personally, please keep in mind, Thomas, where is the crime? Like so far, where is the crime? But anyway, this Rick Dearborn, I've never met this guy. So Paul, my boyfriend, had the email from someone saying, yeah, I don't even remember now the whole details of the story because it did not relate to me directly. Paul forwards me this email saying like, look, they have a conference of something. Would you mind to invite you and Torsion, to invite Torsion and you can come with them. It was the NRA convention somewhere there. That's the back channel. And then I typed like Torsion was not going to come. He was sick and he didn't come those days. That's it. And so they take this fact that I even forgot of and bring it up as a secret channel, back channel communication. Seriously?
Yeah, there was a bit more. I have to see on my notes because they really tried to pin you on this.
Yeah.
That you as a normal citizen, because even here in the Netherlands, I believe in Europe, it's illegal as a private citizen to speak on the behalf of a country with another country.
Right? I have never spoken on behalf of my country in another country. My guilt is. Have you seen my question to Trump?
Not yet. This
Oh,
was the next one. The next one is then on,
and they said, do you
indeed.
know what they said? Oh, like, okay, that's important. So here's what they say. I stood up and Trump was Trump. He sees the
To
beautiful.
be specific, then in July 2016, you attend the Freedom Fest, and this is where you asked Donald Trump, right?
Yes, the video is public. So here's how it happened. Trump was not planned in the panel at all. And nobody expected him to come because Trump was Trump. He just said, oh, there are libertarians there. How about I go? So you can check my words, like word by word. So he comes to the conference, and then after his speech, where he says, "Oh, I love you guys," and he brings this guy Mexican on the stage and something, he says, "Well, if somebody has questions, let's go. They have two mics." So I'm standing. Of course, I want to ask question. There is Trump here. Of course, you would. So I stand in the line, and he's short of time. And his assistant says, "Okay, last question. That's it." And last question was not mine. It was somebody's else. And then Trump sees me, and then at that time I have this long red head, and he sees me, a beautiful lady, and Trump is Trump. He says, "Oh, she's gonna ask the question." And this is how I ended to be last. And he hears my accent, realizes that I'm talking about Russia, and he starts commenting that Putin bodies, guys, whatever. But he has been talking about Russia for a month already. It was not the first time he talked about Russia. No. So basically what I asked, you can find my question, was about sanctions. Like, sanctions are damaging for all the sides, for both sides. We taught this at school. 33% sanctions backfire. You can find the theory that actually talks of that. Anyway, so I asked this question, and the FBI on the debrief say, like, you were asking this question in the favor of Russian government, and they say, well, sorry, how? And they say, well, because does it profit people? And I say, yeah, it profits people that we have normal trade going on. And they say, well, that means it's profits the government. And I say, yeah, I mean, because government cares of people, usually, not always, but you know, yes. And they say, well, then you were acting on behalf of the government. Say, like, stop that. Like, I was just asking a question as a citizen. I was not even having any official position. I was a torsions intern, had never been paid. How can you put me in prison for what? Well, and then they say, well, you have suspiciously good English. And I say, yeah, you put me in prison. And additionally to that, I studied in as a translator at a school, just a regular school, and 2 years master's. Probably I kind of, studied the language, maybe. That's why. It doesn't mean I'm a super spy. And by the way, super spies, they try to hide their accent. And my accent is quite obvious, very much.
Talking about Backchannels, and I'm throwing another name into the mix. That's O'Neill. O'Neill is the great grandson of one of the Rothschilds, right?
Rockefeller.
So, sorry, Rockefeller.
Rockefeller.
Yes. So, according to the information that I'm having in front of me, Butina told Torshin, which we already introduced, that O'Neill, the great grandson of a very rich family, enjoys proximity to the formation of the future White House administration, regardless of which side wins, and that the gathering should help the White House experts from the correct outlook towards Russia. And Torshin conveyed his strong approval. Torshin was very much impressed by you and expressed his great appreciation for what you're doing to restore relations between the two countries. So this is also something that the FBI used under the umbrella of back-channel contacts for you as a private citizen, right? So what's the story with O'Neill here? The story between Torshin and O'Neill. Is it true? First of all, is it true?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
listen, have you ever heard, maybe you haven't, I was not familiar with this name before I coming to the US. There was a candidate on the US elections in the 90s named Pat Buchanan.
Yep.
Well, for Russia, he was not known, but I think he had quite good ideas. But anyway, so Pat Buchanan campaign was, so my boyfriend Paul Erickson and George O'Neill were both on Pat Buchanan's election campaign. They were like Paul was an intern and George was in the middle age something because he is now over 70s. So this is how the two met. And George has always had respect to Russia because he is, oh, that's a hard word in English, isolationist. I mean, this is a hard right conservatives who believe America first, nothing but we should not be involved in any foreign policy, no fighting, nothing else. That's George. He hosts a group of the people like him, and they have meetings. Had meetings, now I don't know, every other week at the Metropolitan Club in Washington, D.C. So eventually, me and Paul, because Paul is extra conservative too since Buchanan times, we go to the Metropolitan Club. He invites me there. I meet George. By the way, James Bamford, is a very good friend of George O'Neill. We all of us actually met. He maybe probably mentioned that we met at the Metropolitan Club, and so this is how I met George. So eventually, here's what George does. George is a Rockefeller, that's true, but he's a very hardworking Rockefeller, meaning he has his coal mine, and I mean, he's not from the golden boys, you know what I mean? He's a really nice man. So at some point, he says, look, I tell him that I'm a peace builder, and I do believe that U.S. and Russia should be friends. We have nothing. We have a lot of differences, but more similarities. And this gun rights issue. He's not so much in guns, more in safari. Hunting. And he says, look, how about I host a dinner, George? I host a dinner for some Russian group that might come so we can talk in terms of civil diplomacy, just people to people. I'm going to bring a couple of senators there, maybe you will bring a couple of senators, and we just sit and have dinner, let's say at the Army-Navy Club. Well, pay attention. George, an American citizen, paid for the dinner, and I'm a foreign agent of Russia. Do you see the logic here? I do not.
The FBI certainly did. If we come back to 2016 to finish my little list here, it says you begin an intimate relationship with Patrick Byrne, CEO of Overstock.com. And that's an interesting name. I'm sorry to mention the name just when you drink something.
Patrick Byrne.
Byrne, yes. I'm sorry. I mutilate names on a regular basis.
The whole crypto world knows Patrick Byrne and his famous interview about how he still loves Maria Butina. I love.
But he was not really straightforward with you, right?
Not really. Here is what Patrick Byrne is fantastic. He spoke at the Freedom Fest. The question, do you remember my question to Trump? If you look at the program of that event, he spoke a couple of hours before Trump at the same event. This is how we first met. I was standing in the line because I studied international relations and I was interested in cyber issues, cybersecurity, and especially Bitcoin, because I believe this is the fiat money goes to the past. And I'm quite libertarian here, okay, on the money issue. And Patrick Byrne is a legend for everybody who believes in free market, anyone. So he's there, and I was standing in the line, introduced myself, gave him my business card, and well, I don't consider myself beautiful, but I think he did. So he invited me for dinner. This is how we two met. So Patrick Byrne, and I love FBI version, and especially the headlines. So they're moral police now. So the FBI is not just the FBI, but they also the moral police. They know whom you should sleep with and not to sleep with. That's wonderful. That's exactly what we want from the FBI to do. That's awesome, guys. But anyway, this is I really met Patrick, and we had wonderful dinner, and we had certain relations that I will not go deep into. Patrick did, but I will let myself to be a lady and not to disclose the details of the depths of our relationships with Mr. Byrne. But now he has a movie even made that includes the core of the story, what happened. It ended up to be that Patrick was a CI, a confidential informant, and over time he was dating me as the order of the FBI So they told him to do so. I don't think he suffered much, but well, anyway, he did that. Over time, he came to the point that I am not a spy, and he goes to the FBI. He talks about this publicly in his interviews. He goes to the FBI. I'm arrested already, and he says, "Look, let this girl go because I mean, here's my evidence. At least you should present my testimony in the court. Here's the testimony. Give it to the court." And they say, "We don't know who you are. I mean, you're just a guy." So he is an oligarch, meaning he was in the Forbes list. He's the owner and was
He
the
had a lot to
owner.
lose. He had a lot to
Yeah.
lose. Yeah.
And so he is kind of self-minded and self-centered. So at some point he says, "So F you guys," and he goes on CNN and tells the whole story, saying like, "Look, not Maria was a honeypot. I was a honeypot for her." So actually the story is reverse. And now imagine me, I'm in Tallahassee Federal Prison washing dishes, somewhere on the back, plus 50 Celsius, and I am happy to be unknown. I served 4 months on solitary confinement. I'm afraid of people, looking like very scared little kid, very skinny, and somewhere in the back. And then, and I just want to serve my time and go back to Russia, so nothing happens, no high-profile cases, don't want to go on special housing. And then the TV turns on, and it is Patrick. And the whole jail, 900 women, start talking like, "Oh, that's her." It's like, no, boy. I even invented a new name for myself. So he actually broke my conspiracy again. It was a dishwasher jail conspiracy that he broke.
He broke a
Poor
cover.
guy.
He broke a cover in jail. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. As far as you know, how long did this going on? That he basically spied on you, so to speak, while pretending to have a relationship with you? I mean,
Well,
I don't need exact dates, but was it a week or was it a month?
well, it was more than a year. He goes quite deep into the story, but especially what I like about that, I don't judge Patrick much because he had he serves at the Foreign Relations Committee or Council. They have it somehow. I mean, it's a semi-governmental body in the United States that deals with certain advice on foreign policy. They have them officially everywhere. So Patrick had a minimum level security clearance. So once he met me, he actually had to report to the FBI what he actually did, but he was not obligated to spy on me and report to the FBI. That was kind of too much. But anyway, he did that, and it was like more than a year.
It's quite a long period. So you seem to be very forgiving towards him.
I am a Christian first, and second, I do believe in repentance. People can repent because look, he lost his company, overstock.com. It was a child he created. He lost all his money, and now he lives somewhere in Dubai. Before he lived in Africa because they are trying to sue him for some unrelated case with the election or January 6th stuff. I don't know the details, but the whole thing is that the man who had everything, he now has nothing, and he still found he has guts, okay, to go publicly and say, "I was wrong." And I respect him for that. Despite all the crazy, the fact that he was a patient zero in my case, he gave an idea of me being this witch for a witch hunt, but he did the right thing. As a gentleman and as a man, I think he is a great man. That's why I forgave him. But doesn't mean I want you to have this again. No.
Okay, what a story.
You will see a movie soon. Well, in Russia, Patrick did his movie. It happened to be that in a couple of days, you're going to see an official trailer of a TV series. It's going to be 8 episodes movie that we finished our shooting and filming a movie yesterday, like
Wow.
literally yesterday. It's going to be a quite different story. We will have it translated.
The link that you sent me leads to a not yet published 3-part documentary
Okay.
of Patrick. So I'm not sure if that's the same.
No. we have a
Okay, okay,
Russian one. It just
okay,
happened to be
okay,
at the same time. And
okay, okay.
trust me, my actress who plays me is way more pretty than what they have. I mean, she's a nice lady, but we chose a different
Mm,
option. Let me
yeah.
put it this way. It depends.
I mean, you sent me a Russian book, which partly thanks to ChatGPT I was able to read for my research.
I send you
The,
a Russian version. I'm so
yes.
sorry. I have an English one. I will send you an English version. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay.
That was my mistake. Sorry.
Yeah, no, no worries, no worries. ChatGPT is great
Mm-hmm.
in that respect. Yeah, but you said
Sorry.
already you work on a movie. Then Patrick worked on a 3-part documentary. What else is out there for people who want to know more about your case?
What do you mean? I
No,
mean,
I just said there's a book that's
uh-huh,
out there. Then there is that film the 6 or 8-part
uh-huh.
movie that you just spoke about. Then there is this 3-part documentary from Patrick that I
Okay.
found. What else is out there as far as you know about your case?
Well, if you ever come to Moscow, and I welcome everybody to come to Moscow, there is also believe it or not, a theater play. A play. We
Oh,
play in the theater.
okay.
And I'm gonna have the second book coming up in a month. It's not the continue of the story, but it's 5 years later. I just,
Hmm.
made a brief note.
Yeah.
But again, I was never interested in being a celebrity in the terms like that. But it happened to be this way. And trust me, it's a great joy for me to talk to you and to speak English. It's just because I miss English, you know. But I have still this British horrible English, horrible for Americans. Because when I say porridge, they all freak out because they don't know what porridge is. Oh, this one, my favorite, wardrobe, and they're like, oh, what's that? It's closet. No, it's wardrobe.
British
Sorry.
American. Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
I know, I know. There are only a couple of points. National Prayer Breakfast. I mean, the name already. National Prayer Breakfast. Now, I do know you guys in Russia are pretty religious. Yeah, we here in the Netherlands are less so. But National Prayer Breakfast. And this has something to do with guns, right?
Nothing. Like
Nothing?
National Prayer Breakfast is a tradition that Americans have for about, I mean, they had, because after I was an attendee of the National Prayer Breakfast and they did this crazy stuff, they closed the 70 something plus years tradition where a president used to speak, and now they have closed doors and they do it now inside of the Capitol Hill. Before it was public, meaning you can go and pray together. Yes, you have to find the ticket, and typically the tickets are distributed through assistants of senators and congressmen, and you pay $450 for each. The breakfast is, this little. And yes, there is a president talking, and the idea is that different delegations can set up their room, like Ukrainian room, where you can have all Ukrainian food and some stuff, Russian room and Irish room and whatever. But you can host it just as a private person. There is no government. The whole idea of the breakfast is the people from all different countries, all different religion, Muslims, Christians, all these parts, they come together and they pray together, and the president speaks, and they have a keynote speaker, usually a comedian or a couple of comedians. So that was the one. And after I attended that, they included the fact that I attended in the case. And now nobody can go to the National Prayer Breakfast. Now they have it closed doors in the Capitol Hill.
That's
This is
because of you?
impressive.
That's because
Yeah,
of you?
yeah.
And
Check it. I said, look, I'm sorry, guys, for breaking your tradition 70 something years. Like I didn't mean to
but
do
you
so.
did you attend or did you speak?
No, I just attended.
Just attend.
Yeah,
Incredible.
and they said that
Yeah.
I intruded. There was
Hmm.
a special term that I was like secretly interfering in this
Infiltrating.
yes,
Yeah.
infiltrating
Yeah.
in the room, and I paid
Yeah.
for my ticket.
They also said that you and Torshin infiltrated the NRA.
How did we
They used the word infiltrate. Yeah, that's the
infiltrate?
framing. That's the framing. Yeah. Now we are
Mhm.
almost by your arrest. Yeah. So in March 2018, I think was the first time that that you were interviewed, right? The FBI questions Butina about her activities in the US and her connection with Russian officials, specifically Alexander Torshin. That's in March 2018. And then in 15th of July 2018, you were arrested.
Not
Charged with
exactly this way.
No? Okay.
I was interviewed not by the FBI, but by the Senate Intelligence Committee. I got a letter on my student email, believe it or not, saying like, okay, I am a Senator Feinstein or something. I don't remember the last name of the lady. So the senator, that they want me to voluntarily come and testify if I have something to say about this, the attempts of Russia to interfere in the U.S. elections.
That was in March.
It was in March.
Yeah.
So I'm a student and I say, of course, yes. And I go to the Senate Intelligence Committee. I spent there 8 hours talking about every single stuff in my life, what I do in the US. And guess what? No one senator came, no one. They were just, little clerks. They were sleeping, half sleeping. And once I'm done, my lawyer, I have a lawyer who's just my friend those days. And he says, like, if you have any questions, guys, you can follow me up or you can talk to me. And I said, look, I am available. I'm here anytime. If you have any questions. Until they arrested me, they never asked a question. So then the next stage of this play, I have an FBI taking 9 boxes of my school notes at my apartment. This is what Bamford is writing about, because he was all those years, he has been my friend forever already.
How did you meet him, actually? James Bamford. We should be
Metropolitan
specific.
Club.
We should be specific for our listeners. Jim Bamford is one of the most renowned investigative journalists from the US. He has a proven track record of highly successful books. Prior to his last book, which is called Spy Fail, which is not touched, by anyone in the mainstream media for a number of reasons. So we talk about this James Bamford. Where did you meet him? You said it already, but
Metropolitan Club.
okay.
We had this one wonderful event, and here's somebody says like, oh, look, this is James Bamford. And James Bamford, by those days, is very famous. He interviewed Snowden. He wrote The Puzzle Palace.
He sued the NSA.
He sued the NSA unsuccessfully.
And won. And won.
Yes. He won. I mean, they failed to take him in jail. But anyway, so there is a little, a very nice gentleman.
When was that? When was that?
Oh, I don't remember. We met Metropolitan Club. I don't remember when.
After your ordeal in the US.
It was long before, probably first year when I came to the US. It was
okay.
I will explain why it was so interesting meeting. So I see this gentleman. He looks very distinguished gentleman, very polite, with a glass of wine, very interesting to talk to. And he says, oh, hi, I'm James Bamford, and I'm about, where are you from? He reached out to me because somebody told him I am from Siberia. He comes to me and says, oh, by the way, I'm going to take Trans-Siberian Railroad. And I'm looking at him, like you. And I was like, no way. Americans always say that. Like, oh, how would be great we have a cat, and you never have a cat. And then they just talk too much and they never actually do what they talk. They exaggerate things. And I think, oh, that's like nice looking gentleman. He is going to go to take the Trans-Siberian Railroad. No way. And believe it or not, I met him in the fall. Oh, we met in the winter. Almost a year goes by. I meet him in the fall at the same place at the Metropolitan Club. He comes to me and says, yeah, that was great. And I was like, what? So you actually did it? He says, yeah. I say, well, then how about we go to the Marivan? This is a Russian restaurant in Washington, D.C. Marivan restaurant, and you tell me the story. I was like, no way. So then we come to a Marivan restaurant, and this is the funniest part. Americans do not eat caviar. And for Russians, it's a great insult because we love red caviar. Everything is about red caviar. They call it fish eggs. So we come to Marivanna and I see Mr. Bamford, who likes blini, Russian pancakes, with some caviar on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, caviar on top, and he eats it and he likes it. I was like, you are something interesting. Let's talk more. This is how we started our friendship. So we would go back and forth. He loves space. We never talked about an essay per se. We mostly talked about space and history. We had the longest lunches in the history. We would talk and sit and talk for 7 hours. He's a member of the Cosmos Club, which were travelers, for people who traveled all over the world. And we would go like once a month and just talk because she's fantastic. And he stayed, by the way, loyal to the truth. When I was in jail, he was the only one person who actually, from the very beginning to the end, saying, this is, guys, not true. This is a crap. What they do with her. And eventually they published his article in his book, but, you know, they try to keep it low.
They definitely do. So despite his name, despite his track record, his book Spyfile is not touched by anyone. The topics that are being discussed here, I mentioned it already, Arnon Milchan, an Israeli billionaire and super spy still operating from the center of Hollywood today. And consecutive US governments, administrations were aware about this. Yeah? I made a video about this. It's incredible. And the second big story, there are a couple of big stories in this book. The second big story is about Israeli interference in US elections. And this is where you come in. You could.
I did not interfere with Israelis.
No.
Put me in jail for that.
No. But I was wondering, why was there such an effort on blaming you? Despite overwhelming evidence at the time that you do not fit the, how shall I say this, the classical mold of a spy. Why was that? Yes, to some degree, it was the whole Russiagate, the election frenzy Russiagate. But you could also consider there was an underlying element to this, and this is the Israeli interference in the U.S. elections. You could, if you are conspiratorial, conspiratorial thinking mind, then you could argue they tried to cover one scandal with another. Because despite the Israeli interference is mentioned in the Mueller report to some minimal extent, it was never really investigated. Despite, again, overwhelming evidence, we know the companies, the Israeli companies that interfered. We know there were active contacts between those companies and the Trump's circle. I will put something in the appendix of this video. Yeah. So this is not a conspiracy theory. This is not a guesswork. We know with documents that there was an active interference of Israel in the 2016 elections. And I could imagine, again, I don't want to speculate too far, but I could imagine that they used you as a convenient cover, your scandal, so to speak, as a convenient cover for the actual scandal underneath.
I think you're quite right. I don't know the specifics of the Israeli interference or whatever, but Russians are fond of history, as you know. We love history almost as much as we like caviar and playing chess.
And vodka. Sorry, that was a cliche.
Well, I like vino, Russian wine. Yeah. Well, but still, I mean, it's hard to beat German, Austrian Riesling. You still do good. I mean,
you know your wine. You know your wine.
Yeah. So anyway, here's the deal. I just know the history well, and in the U.S., you probably heard about a city called Salem. The city of Salem was very unfamous in the United States because hundreds of people were beaten up there by stones during the witch hunt times. So they couldn't solve the problem, and the problem of economical problems and the Black Death and all this stuff. And so deep troubles were going in the city. And so they had to find somebody to blame, because the church, Catholic Church, couldn't help, the Protestant Church couldn't help, because you cannot make the Black Death disappear by magic. It didn't work. So here's what they did. They found out not just women, but also there were several men and women, and they just beat them to death by stones. They accepted the guilt. I mean, the US government accepted the guilt of that specific murder. Guess when? In 2020. And they were actually charging money for their this art objects, meaning museums and the squares and the mysteries and the movies over those all years. Here's an allegory, okay? The comparison. So that's what they did with me. They desperately needed someone because look, they could have formed my case better, but do you remember the date when I was arrested? July 15th, 2018. If you Google what happened on that date, that was the first meeting of President Trump and President Putin. That was their first meeting. So isn't it a coincidence that they arrest me at the date? Which means that there could be certain negotiations successfully done, but can you imagine? Here you are, two presidents sitting in front of each other, about to discuss some peace issues, and you know that either Russian spy or an innocent student, depending upon what side you look into, is arrested.
Do you think
Would
Putin
you?
was aware at this particular day, the day that you
Everybody,
were?
they made us aware. It was in the Washington Times. It was the Washington Post, the New York Times, immediately. Like I know they usually you get the news, okay, in some little newspaper, and then it spreads and people speculate. And now it was like a click in all the media, the same coverage. Yeah, they knew because it was everywhere. They
Do
made
you
me
think? Do you think
celebrity.
Putin and Trump discussed your case on that specific day?
Who knows? I don't
No.
know.
Okay. Okay.
But at least the background, the actual atmosphere was definitely broken because Russia immediately said the truth. They said, well, we even don't know who is this woman, but we're going to find out because I was not a part of Russian government, never worked for Russian government. I was not a spy, nobody else. Nobody exchanged me. I served my time from day to day until the end. And the U.S. was saying like, "Oh, she's a spy, whatever." And Trump didn't want to, and his campaign, election managers and everything, they didn't try. They tried not to touch the story because it was so hot and poisonous for him, and he was all in on this media fight. So at the very end, here I am. So if you believe in coincidence, I am fine with that, but I don't. I have too many coincidences in my life. That's the reason I believe.
Speaking of Trump, again, what was it here? We already discussed Rick Dearborn. Yeah, I have another Trump in my about improving relationships. I know there was at least the accusation. There was another arrest happened shortly before Trump Putin summit in Helsinki, escalating its political impact. Yeah, and the day. I mean, according to my information, the day you were arrested, you were actually packing all your bags and you wanted to go where to?
Yeah, it's an amazing story. In the court, they said I was about to move to Russia,
To flee,
and the
yeah.
evidence was the U-Haul truck invoice. Look, do you know if U-Haul trucks fly across the ocean? Maybe they can sail? You don't know? I don't know neither. So and I had tickets, and I had a U-Haul truck booked with my boyfriend to go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to spend my summer vacation to start my optional practical training to get my PhD in Kogut Business School at American University. All of that was in my papers. And this is why, now you see why they made the case secret. Because if public would see it, and they will someday, they would say, what's that? That was the evidence that I was trying to escape. Escape by U-Haul truck across the ocean to Russia. Seriously.
One of the key arguments of the prosecution was that you kept Torshin informed about all kinds of activities that were then held against you. Via social media, via emails. I don't know what else they found.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. They found specific private messaging on Twitter. It's a super spy technique. Go to PM on Twitter and write super secret information. All spies do that. Seriously. So anyway, here's what was on PM messages. Torsion is a close friend of mine. I consider him as my grandfather. And he would eventually ask me to buy toothpaste. Yes, shame on us. You guys have better toothpaste than we do.
Yeah.
So yes.
Before, let's introduce Torsion really. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was the deputy governor of the Russian central bank at one time, right?
At that time, yes. But before he was a senator. When we met, he is a big gun lover. And we used to shoot together. And I reached out to him. So he gives me some NRA contact information because he travels back and forth to the NRA because he shoots. And he is a gun collector. He collects guns.
Yeah. But aside of his, affiliation with guns, he is deeply connected in the Russian government. So,
well, in fact, he works in Russian government, but every time when here's how I come in place. Every time when he would have a vacation time on his own expense, he would take a vacation to go to the US, to go the NRA conventions or to shoot. Many people do that. And I used to book tickets for him because during his vacation, he doesn't have an assistant in place because, I mean, that's out of office. He's not supposed to use his assistant when he's on vacation. So he asked my help. That's
again,
a crime.
that's what the FBI was holding against you. So first of all, that you apparently kept Torsion informed about your, let's say, activities. And then, of course, that Torsion facilitated not only contacts within Russia, but also within America for you. So this is something that
Yeah, I just told you. I asked him to invite the NRA guys on my annual meeting in 2014, and they came, as well as representatives of 15 different communities from 15 different countries. I don't know what is the crime. I mean, if you found here a crime, I would be happy to, because so far I'm still trying to understand what did I serve my time for, and who is going to get my health back and, my time back and all the tortures. But anyway, then he's well connected in Russian circles. He had a very high position. What is the crime?
So to be very clear, again, according to my information, the FBI have not found any evidence, anything related to spycraft, any, I don't know, illegal means, technical means of transmission to the Moscow embassy or to Moscow directly, what the things that you would expect by a spy. So there was not a single item found when they searched not only your apartment, I think also your boyfriend's apartment was searched.
Yeah, they found eight. They took 8 boxes from me of my different school notes and all this stuff. And they look, if the U.S. prosecutors and the FBI would even have one little point,
You would still be in
a
jail.
drop,
You would
they
still
would
be in
give
jail.
me 35 years. And the case was so nothing. Then they need to make up the whole thing and put it all secret.
Now we have a couple of minutes left, and you spoke about the 5 years since already. Can you talk a little bit what happened in those 5 years for you? The key events that are most important, most outstanding for you. I mean, you sitting in the Duma. I mean, I find this incredible.
Well, okay. It got started not this way. It got started. I went. I went to Byrne. I wanted to, to stay silent and, do nothing. By the way, I'm sending you a link for the misled prosecutors. So just check it out. That's what was everywhere. A half year later. Anyway, so when I came back, I just wanted to stay quiet and, be with my parents and their little cat. But several people reached out to me, people who also are in a similar positions like me in different countries, in Germany, not Germany, Greece, France, United States, people who are facing some absurd charges. Well, not every Russian who is in jail is guilty. Okay. I have no illusion about that. Oh, trust me. According to our constitution, we either help to everyone to have whatever they're supposed to do. But I understand that people do crimes. Okay, that's fine. But anyway, but I was reached out by people that I consider to be really political prisoners. And I remember Alexander Vinnik. You can check him out. He is supposed to be a Russian hacker who is now extradited to the U.S. So his mom called me.
From Russia.
No, he was caught in Greece, and then he served time in Greece, and then he served time in France, and then recently they extradited him to the United States. Over those years, his wife died, his grandmother died. I mean, that's a horrible case, but I'm not gonna go deep. Anyway, so his mom asked me for help, and I couldn't refuse. I mean, I went through a horrible part time and everything. So I started to help to those people who are, and I do it on my own expense. I mean, that's my charity project. Some people help cats, dogs, some people have children. I do help to political prisoners. So over time, I got more and more involved in this different political cases, international ones. And that's what I still do. I'm responsible in the Duma for two things: for help to those Russians who are unjustly prosecuted abroad, and number two, that's a new program that's a decree on spiritual asylum that President Putin signed, which says that if you think that you are conservative and you have traditional values and you want to keep your family away from this LGBT stuff, you can come to Russia. You don't need to learn the language, and you don't have to have a certain quota space and something. It's just brand new. It happened 2 months ago. So we have a lot of requests from the people who want to move to Russia, and I work with those requests in the Duma. That's basically what I'm doing right now. I mean, besides making movies and being involved in all this almost Hollywood stuff. But this is by circumstance. And I never wanted to be a celebrity serving time in jail, you know. I would prefer to be a woman, but that happened this way, that, you know, God, whatever, providence.
An unrelated question, if I may.
Sure.
You being in Russia, what's the mood in Russia now? I'm very conscious of the fact that we in the Western world, you know, in the NATO bubble, our news are controlled and synced. I have no illusion whatsoever. Huh? So we get a certain picture here in the Western media, but you are living in Russia. What's the sentiment on the street by the ordinary Russian people in regards to this proxy war between America and Russia that's playing out in Ukraine?
Well, ordinary Russians, especially out of Moscow, are very much involved in helping to the fronts, because many people now serve in the special military operation, which means we all, some more, some less, but we either donate money or we do, well, like we make nets, you know, for militaries, for military guys, or we collect baggages, warm clothes. So the whole country is like in the one union feeling, you know, and at the same time, see, we now have plenty of foreigners coming here, bringing families to live here, and I mean, we love you all, guys. Meaning, Russians are not hostile toward people; they're hostile toward crazy governments that I think took our world back in terms of science and all of this stuff. Because wherever you start playing games with the population, and I think actually this is the U.S. that destroyed Europe. Basically, they did, and Europe should seriously take their own stand. They don't need to be with Russia, without Russia, whatever. But I'm just such a fan of deep culture you guys have, and museums and philosophy and everything. America has none of that. And they just stole your life and you know, your values and your traditions, which I don't like. That's my opinion.
It is astonishing how European leaders, almost all of them, sleepwalking in a hot war with Russia on America's behalf. It's incredible. Yeah, and one of those items I briefly would like to mention is the Nord Stream attack, where according to
Yeah.
American journalists, the U.S. was in some form or shape involved, right? Putting Germany and by extension wider Europe in, according to Seymour Hersh's words, a pre-industrial stage. People don't realize it yet. How the effect of the miss of the cheap Russian gas, the effect that this will have on the economy in the next 10, 20, 30 years. This is a generational thing.
They will never break Russian relationships with Europe, because I mean, you may not want that, but we are our code, generation code, is so much like each other, because we happen to manage to live here on this land for ages. Catherine the Great is I think she's the greatest politician probably in Russian history. She is originally German, and her favorite writer that formed the mentality of a Russian nation was Voltaire, who is French. The genius guy who was in charge of Peter the Great military forces, you should know him well, is Lefort. You can never take Russia in isolation from especially Europe, who is also Christian, and we have such a mixed blood. And I don't know what European leaders are the hell doing, because now they are leaving the population of the countries who believe in them without normal economy, empty museums, empty brain of their kids. How can I see in the great, like German, in the strong country with its all stamina, to see nothing happens after the Nord Stream was blown up, and everybody says, "Oh, it's Ukrainians, guys. Okay, they were underwater and just cut everything by their teeth."
Yeah, people don't know what is involved,
Yeah,
what equipment you need to go down this step.
they do. They do. They just don't want to accept the fact that they're doomed. They do know.
The first Secretary General of the NATO said already, and you can follow this through the generations. The aim of NATO is a very simple one: to keep America in, Russia out, and Germany down. And this is still the geostrategic directives of today. This is what we are seeing. This is why
Yeah.
America tries to, push Europe into a hot war with Russia, which is closer than most people think. Maria, you have been very generous for your time. I see we 2 minutes we're over. 2 minutes we're over. Yeah.
That's okay.
I really appreciate. I know you're very busy. It was my pleasure talking to you. There would be many other topics to discuss. I would be interesting to
Me
have
too.
another conversation. For today,
Subscribe to
Twitter.
Yes.
Where can people reach you? Where and how can people reach you?
Okay, you can reach me out on X. It's Maria Butina. I am back because I still have like baby steps hope that under Elon Musk, we can actually communicate on Twitter. So you just go ahead and you join my Twitter page. You will see there a picture that looks like me exactly. And please, if you have any questions or just want to chat, follow me on Twitter. Well, especially I like very hard questions, and even the provocative ones. I love it. Thank you so much.
I will put the link to your Twitter account in the description.
Thank you.
Okay. Maria, it was my pleasure talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you for tuning into SaltCube Analytics. We hope today's episode gave you something to think about and challenged the way you see the world. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe or follow us and leave a review or a comment. Your feedback helps us keep questioning the status quo. For more insights and discussions, follow us on YouTube, Rumble, TikTok, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of your other preferred podcast platforms. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and remember, always look beyond the headlines.